Welcome, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. Thanks for joining us on our next episode of Al Exploring. Today, we are exploring Fayette County, Ohio. We'll be joined, we'll be going to um, two villages, the the town of New Hope, which is where we're at right now, Bloomingburg, and in between those, we'll be stopping in Washington Courthouse. So let's get started here at Good Hope Cemetery. Let's get exploring. All right, so this is Ohio Historical Marker 824, dedicated to David Jones, the Medal of Honor recipient. The Good Hope Cemetery is the final resting place for veterans of many of America's wars, including David Jones. Jones earned the Medal of Honor as a member of Company 1 of the 54th Ohio Volunteer Infantry Regiment in the Union Army. During General Ulysses S. Grant's Vicksburg campaign, Jones volunteered for a mission known as the, quote, Forlorn Hope. It was the lead assault of a major attack and meant certain death or wounding for soldiers in the attacking party. Jones's Forlorn Hope was part of Grant's attempt on May 22, 1863, to storm Vicksburg's defenses and take the city, avoiding a siege. The attack did not succeed. Of the 150 soldiers who volunteered for the assault, many were killed or wounded, including Jones. After a 47-day siege, Vicksburg surrendered on July 4, 1863, the same day as the Union's victory at Gettysburg. According to Jones' pension application, quote, his head became badly and permanently injured from concussion of cannon fire with the storming party to capture Fort Pemberton, then held by the enemy at Vicksburg, Mississippi. The mouth of the cannon was within 4 or 5 feet of Jones in said fort, where he and others were compelled to remain all day in the hot sun and suffering from incessant firing of cannon by the enemy. Jones and his comrades, who were still alive then, could not retreat until after night, for reason that they would have been killed by the enemy. After the war, Jones returned to Good Hope for the rest of his life. He married Rosalie A. Smith in 1865, fathered 6 children, and was a highly respected member of the community. So this historical marker was placed in 2010 here at the Good Hope Cemetery. So this is our first stop. We are not going to explore the cemetery, but definitely come out and check it out if you like old cemeteries, in the hills. These aren't big hills, but they're certainly, for a cemetery, nice and big, and some beautiful trees as well. So let's get back to the car and head to our next stop. So we are now at Washington Cemetery, where we'll find 2 Ohio historical markers. And this is a very old cemetery here in Washington Courthouse. And not only that, but it is very large. And yeah, so I'm definitely going to be able to show you a lot of interesting historical things in this cemetery. So We're coming up to our first Ohio historical marker. So let's get going to this sign. This one's going to be right across from this chapel. It is numbered 224. It's about Harry M. Daughtry, one of Ohio's most influential politicians in the early 20th century. Washington Courthouse native Harry Daughtry lived 1860 to 1941, was widely known as a, quote, president maker, and served instrumental roles in President Warren Harding's administration, culminating a long career in state and local national politics. As Attorney General from 1921 to 1924, Daughtry established the first federal women's penitentiary, recommended former President William Howard Taft to the Supreme Court, and ended a controversial 1922 railroad strike. Implicated in scandals complicated by the suicide of his assistant and fellow Fayette County native Jess Smith, Daughtry was eventually cleared in congressional investigations and 2 bribery trials, and subsequently published an insider's account of the Harding administration. Both Daughtry and Smith are buried in Washington Cemetery. All right. We're going to take some photos here and then move on to our next stop. As you can see, the cemetery seems to go on forever and ever. But what this really talks about, though, is the wealth distribution. You know, those with more money have the bigger grave sites. Those without have smaller. And we've seen ones that are small and ones that are taller than I am. But they're all from the 1800s, which is incredible. And they're all very well kept up, and various different designs on them as well. So we are here now at our third Ohio historical marker in Fayette County. This is numbered 424, titled Soldiers Row. In 1844, the Ohio General Assembly authorized the burial of the body of any honorably discharged ex-Union soldier, sailor, or Marine of this state who shall hereafter die without leaving means sufficient to defray funeral expenses. Permanent government-issued headstones have been provided to veterans since the late 19th century. Between 1884 and the 1930s, Washington Cemetery buried 47 white soldiers and 35 African American soldiers. These veterans served in the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, and World War I. They are remembered for the sacrifices they made. In the fall of 2001, the cemetery underwent significant renovations in which students of the Washington Senior High School Research History Program aided in identifying the buried soldiers and restoring and replacing the gravestones. Here in Soldiers Row, the words of local United States Colored Troops veteran Albert Byrd echo centuries later. We have suffered to save the country. We ought to be remembered. And we're here remembering these soldiers. And this row even extends to this side. All right, well, let's move on to our next stop here in Washington Courthouse for our next Ohio historical marker. right, so our next stop is the third cemetery on our trip today. Here in Washington Courthouse, we have St. Coleman Church and Cemetery. This is numbered 624 here in Fayette County. Irish railroad workers founded the Catholic community in Washington Courthouse in the 1850s, with the first Mass being held in a local shanty in 1852. In 1871, Father John B. O'Donoghue purchased 3 5/8 acres of land adjoining Washington Cemetery on the outskirts of Washington Courthouse to build the St. Coleman Church and adjacent cemetery. In 1885, much of Washington Courthouse, including St. Coleman Church, was destroyed by a tornado. To mark the site of the church, a stone monument was erected on June 19, 1916. Over 35 veterans from the Civil War, Spanish-American War, and World War I are buried in St. Coleman Cemetery, and at least 16 of these veterans were Irish immigrants. The cemetery's highest decorated veteran, James Aloysius Ducey, served in World War I and World War II, earning numerous awards, including the Silver Star and the French Croix de Guerre. Let's see if on the back side it's the same one. So let's go see the I think it's over here, the marker of where the church once stood before it was destroyed by a tornado. There's a grotto there. Cemetery is much smaller than Washington Cemetery, but you can see some of the same large obelisks and monuments here. And this is where I think the church started. You can see names like Kerrigan and Haggerty, Burke, and you can even see this one here is very ornate and a Celtic type cross. So another beautiful cemetery here. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next Ohio historical marker. So we are now in Uptown Washington Courthouse, but here's this dog boarding suites, and there's a cat. So we're walking here through a town area of Washington Courthouse. Lots of really old buildings here. A yoga studio here. The Fayette County Chamber of Commerce. But we're going to keep going to the marker. We'll see you there. All right. So we're here at our next stop. It's the Fayette County Courthouse. But I want to just point out, they are piping music into speakers along the downtown street, which is pretty empty. A lot of abandoned businesses like this one, they're piping music into the city. Very interesting. So here's the courthouse. There are two sides here. So I'm going to start with this one about the Fayette County Courthouse and the Archibald M. Willard murals. Opened on May 1st, 1885, this is the third Fayette County Courthouse building. Ohio artist Archibald Willard, who is best known for the patriotic painting The Spirit of '76, was commissioned by the firm Cook Brothers to do a painting and fresco work for the interior walls of the courthouse. Willard did not sign his work, and the artist's identity remained a mystery for nearly 75 years until confirmation was made in August 1956. The artist's name was cleverly disguised in the delivery address of the letter in The Spirit of the U.S. Mail mural. The other primary murals, Spirit of Electricity and Spirit of the Telegraph, adorned the third floor corridor. And then on this side, we have the Washington Courthouse Riot of 1894. On October 16th, 1894, a crowd gathered outside the courthouse with intent to lynch alleged attacker William Jasper Dolby. Governor William McKinley ordered Ohio National Guard troops sent in to subdue the crowd. The mob was initially thwarted, but on October 17th, while Dolby awaited transportation from the jail to the courthouse, the riots intensified. Despite Dolby's guilty plea to rape and a 20-year sentence, the crowd sought vengeance. They rushed the courthouse doors and were warned to disperse or be fired upon. They ignored the warning and continued to batter the doors. Colonel Alonzo B. Coit ordered his troops to fire through the courthouse doors. 5 men were killed. Colonel Coit was indicted for manslaughter and was acquitted at trial. After the trial, Governor McKinley stated, "The law was upheld as it should have been, but in this case, at fearful cost. Lynching cannot be tolerated in Ohio." The bullet holes are still visible in the south doors of the courthouse. So, we have the courthouse here. Maybe we can see those bullet holes. Yes, you can. You can see the bullet holes right there in the middle of the door. You can see the little circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's like 11 bullet holes in these doors on the courthouse steps. So that's a nice little piece of McKinley history, as well as Ohio and Washington courthouse history. McKinley was the governor of Ohio before becoming the president of the United States. So let's keep going on here on our trip. Let's listen to the piped in music from the Washington Courthouse speakers throughout the uptown area. All right, we're here along these railroad tracks to where we will find our next marker and this very old cemetery. It looks like most of these, if not all of them, are veterans of some sort. So let's go check it out. And now we are here at marker number 724, the old Washington Cemetery. This was placed in 2008. Washington Courthouse was founded in 1810 by American Revolutionary War veterans from the state of Virginia. They also established Washington Cemetery in 1810 and located it within what was originally the southern part of town. With the coming of the railroad, the cemetery's size was reduced to what is now approximately half an acre of land containing 112 headstones. One of the prominent people buried in the cemetery is Judge Wade Loughborough, known for his interest in the utopian socialist society called Fourierism. He purchased land in Clermont County to establish a society, but it failed. Loughborough eventually became a respected judge and lawyer in Fayette County. Other distinguished people buried here include veterans of the American Revolution and the War of 1812. So just as interesting as the sign, I kind of want to know what this building was. It's like some kind of something because there's truck bumpers there, but very interesting. It's very old. It's got a tin roof and everything. But let's look through these headstones. This person died in 1839. Some of the older ones that we have seen. A lot of these are unlegible, non-readable. It's a 5-year-old here, Sarah Ann, died in 1840. Some of these are getting a little bit more readable, but a lot of these are from the 1850s. This person died in 1817. Can't make out their age, but 1817. Here is a newer plate here for Felix McElhaney, who was a Revolutionary War veteran from the 7th Pennsylvania Regiment, POW, captured in the Battle of Three Rivers. So I'm guessing that would be Pittsburgh. The stars are all pointed this way. You can see some of these placed here for War of 1812. But I'm going to say most of these is very hard to make out the headstones. So let's head on to our next stop here in Fayette County, Ohio. All right, we are now here at Iman Park in Washington Courthouse, Ohio, where we're going to find this giant train from the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. But the sun is so bright, can't get a good shot. But we have marker number 924 here in Fayette County, titled Granville T. Woods in Washington Courthouse from 1878 to 1880. Granville T. Woods was a pivotal African American inventor during the 19th and early 20th century. Wood's invention of the telegraph device enabled railway companies to know the location of each of their trains. This new technology greatly enhanced train scheduling and reduced the frequency of fatal collisions throughout the railway industry. From 1878 through 1880, Woods was a railroad locomotive engineer employed by the Springfield, Jackson, and Pomeroy Railroad Company, and later by the Dayton and Southeastern Railroad. With frequent stops in Washington Courthouse and extensive leisure time, Woods learned telegraphy from a local telegraph operator. During one of Woods' trips from Washington Courthouse to Dayton, he visited the Beckel House. Here he observed the passengers' elevators' mode of signaling to be inadequate. Woods felt that he could improve the process through the use of electrical induction. This planted the seed for one of Woods' first inventions, the induction telegraphy system. After his tenure with the railroad, Woods relocated to Cincinnati, where he began to focus on inventing. In 1886, the Woods Electric Company was organized for the purpose of putting Woods' inventions on the market. Woods died in New York in 1910. So there's a little piece of African American history here in Washington Courthouse. Let's head on to our final Ohio historical marker here in Washington Courthouse. The last one in Fayette County is going to be in Bloomingburg. We'll see you there. All right, we're at our last stop here. Make sure you like, subscribe, share this video with anyone that you find would like a video on history, Ohio history, Washington Courthouse, and Fayette County. So, with that being said, let's make our way to the next marker. All right, here's our final marker here in Fayette County. Number 524. Very fitting. This is, I believe, our fourth cemetery of the day. This is Bloomingburg Cemetery. The Bloomingburg Presbyterian Church and Cemetery was established in the northwest corner of the current cemetery grounds on March 7th, 1818. Several years later, it became a center for anti-slavery activity. The Reverend William Dickey, who presided over the church, and other members devoted their lives to the anti-slavery cause, not only in voice but also abolitionist activity. By the mid-1800s, their work, as well as the fact that Bloomingburg had become a home to a vibrant African American community, led to the town becoming the area center for the Underground Railroad, which helped transport many fugitive slaves to freedom in the North. 6 soldiers from the American Revolutionary War, 19 from the War of 1812, and over 100 from the Civil War and Spanish-American War are buried in Bloomingburg Cemetery, including Henry Casey, who was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his valor at Vicksburg. All right, well, adventure starts right here in our own backyard. It's time to go seek our next adventure in history. I'll explore now.